Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 102, and let me jump in with some quick housekeeping items, and then we'll get into the meat of the episode. Number one, just a reminder, you'll get episodes Tuesday through Friday this week, and then I am gone for the rest of the month. I'm on vacation for Thanksgiving. I will be out of state. I won't be recording. I probably will be mostly just offline in general, so that I can enjoy some time with my girls while they are out of school. Spend some time with my family, spend some time with some friends that we're going to see over the holidays. So really excited for that. But I'm sure you are excited to see your friends and family as well. And the last thing you need is somebody droning on about Stoic philosophy while you're trying to enjoy your turkey. So I doubt you'll miss me, but just wanted to let you know you will not be getting an episode again until the week of December 2nd, when I will be back for a couple of weeks before another break for Christmas. Number two, I started this podcast back in May. The reason I started it was to coincide with the release of my book, In Valor, 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. The reason I wrote the book, the reason I started the podcast was 100% to give back to the community that I left when I left law enforcement. Those of you who have been listening for a while already know this, but I left law enforcement in 2022 to take care of a terminally ill family member. I didn't want to leave my career. I wasn't excited to leave my career. I wasn't looking for a new direction. I didn't want to become an entrepreneur. I wasn't looking to become a public speaker or, God forbid, a podcast host. I just needed to be there for my family while we were going through something very, very difficult. And, as a practicing Stoic, that was really in line with and aligned with some of the teachings that this philosophy puts forth. And so I never regretted doing it, but my regret has always been that I don't get to serve in this capacity in the same way that I did before. And so when I started writing my book in 2023, it took me almost a year. It took me about 8 months to write that book and self-produce and publish it. It was with the idea of giving back to the law enforcement community. And as I started to contemplate how to market it, how to get it in front of people, I thought the best way to raise awareness about Stoicism and get in front of a wider audience was to go on social media, create a podcast, go on social media, and do some of the things that I have been uncomfortable with most of my life, which is presenting myself in the digital environment. I love speaking. I'm a public speaker. I'll get up on a stage. I did it throughout my career. I taught at the academy. I taught at different conferences, law enforcement conferences. I have no problem getting up in front of a room of 1,000 people or 1,500 people and telling a story. I love to do that. Getting in front of a microphone, getting in front of a camera, trying to figure out social media algorithms, trying to build an audience that way, I am less comfortable with. In fact, I don't like it. In fact, I spent my career avoiding social media. And so in May, when I was contemplating, okay, book release is going to be coming out the next month and a half, I was going through final revisions, all that stuff. There's a need to build kind of a personal brand around a release of a book. And so I started, I was on social media early in the year on Instagram, following different people in the law enforcement community, large law enforcement accounts, really catering my social media experience to law enforcement, military type accounts, people that I thought represented the audience that I was trying to reach, and developed some great contacts, made some great inroads, met some great people that I'm so grateful to have met. And then when the book came out, I said, you know what, let's launch a podcast at the same time that talks about the same topics so that you can capture some audience where they are. Guys sitting in their cars, guys driving to and from work, guys who just need a little bit of mindset medicine. And so I kind of put all those things together. But when I did all of that, I said, I'm not going to do this and just hope that people show up. I'm not going to do this and just kind of like wish it into existence. I'm going to track my metrics. I'm not going to show up every single day and do something I don't like to do unless I know that it is meeting the goals that I set. And so I set up a spreadsheet, and I set up Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, YouTube, podcast, Substack. I put it all on that spreadsheet, and then I tracked month over month followers, interactions, engagement, whatever the metric is that the different social media companies use to track your effectively how quote unquote popular you are on their platform. Downloads, subscribers, whatever it is, right? And so from May, so for the month of May, month of June, July, August, September, for about 5 months, I tracked those analytics, and I posted every single day. I posted to, Instagram every single day. I posted to YouTube 4 times a week. The podcast would go up there, video would go up there. I was posting YouTube Shorts. I did different Stoic challenges to try to test out different hashtags and all that stuff. I followed a plan. I followed Gary V and his plan, and I talked to my wife about what I was doing because she's a marketing expert. I said, look, I'm going to test this theory. I'm going to find out where my audience is, and then when this is all said and done, I'm going to cut the fat, eliminate that which isn't impactful, that which isn't drawing in an audience, and I'm going to focus on where my audience is as revealed by the analytics. And what I learned over time, for those who are interested, is that the audience typically for something like this, for a philosophy podcast that is very niche, it's a philosophy podcast that is aimed at first responders. So it's a very niche idea. That is not going to be on Instagram. I never went on TikTok. I have no idea how that works. I don't want anything to do with it. It's a Chinese spy app. I'm not using it. But Instagram, it's just like people who are attractive or think they're attractive selling attractiveness. And that's not what I'm trying to do here. And so, unsurprisingly, Instagram was not the vehicle for podcast growth. And so I've largely stepped away from Instagram. I'm grateful for having stepped away. I'm grateful to have proven my point that that's not where my audience is, and to have stepped away from it because I'm not a huge fan of putting myself out there in that way. So I've stepped away from that. I've stepped away from YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts would bring a lot of viewers in to the YouTube Shorts, but they weren't really converting into people listening to or subscribing to the podcast. And I'm going to do away with creating video content for YouTube. So what I do is I record the podcast, both audio and video, and then I post the audio to the podcast streams. I post the video to YouTube. Nobody's watching the videos. Nobody wants to sit and watch me, staring at a camera, reading about philosophy or talking about philosophy. It's not like a talk show like Real Ones or the Sean Ryan show where you have a compelling environment and there's a back and forth between the guest and the speaker. It's just me. And so I'm doing away with video content, doing away with largely with Instagram. If you follow me over there, I'm not going to go away. I'm just not going to be talking about this stuff. And doing away with YouTube Shorts. It's going to be focused entirely on what I already instinctively knew, which is the audio component and the long form writing. And so as we close out the year, I'm going to be making some changes in the podcast to focus on what it is that I do well and what it is that is drawing people in, which is putting out episodes for audio consumers. And I'm going to be changing my hosting platform entirely over to Substack. So if you're listening to me right now, if you're listening to me on YouTube, if you're listening to me via Apple Podcasts, if you're listening to me via Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you should still be able to pick up the stream in those places, but you're going to have to sign up for Substack in order to do it. So if you like this podcast, if you're enjoying this podcast and you want to continue to receive it in the new year, go over to thestoicresponder.substack.com and sign up completely free. I don't spam you. I don't sell you anything. I don't sell your email to anyone. I don't do any of that stuff. What that's going to allow me to do is send the podcast directly to your email inbox, but it's also going to allow, when I change the hosting over from Libsyn, where I currently host and I have to pay a monthly fee to host, it's going to allow me to change it over to the Substack platform where I can host it completely free, which is important when you run a free podcast to not incur debt. So I can host it completely free on Substack. And then if I want to offer up different tiered memberships where I can offer exclusive content, or I can offer, if you want to join, you get a copy of the book. If you can, I haven't worked out all the details yet, but essentially Substack will allow me to host completely free. I can do long form content plus podcast. plus tiered membership levels if I want to, and kind of consolidate everything into a single space. So all that to say, if you love sitting here on YouTube and watching me talk to a camera, that's going away. I apologize. If you are the one or two people who are watching these videos, get them while they last. The long form video and the short form video is going away, and we're going to focus on producing a high quality podcast that is going to give you some mindset medicine and help you get through your day in your fast, uncertain, and rapidly evolving environment by focusing on some philosophy that's been around for 2,000 years that has helped a lot of other people get through those sorts of environments. So that is the housekeeping portion of the show. Let me jump into the podcast right now. Episode 102, Do You Desire Happiness? Let me start you out with a quote from Epictetus. Desire and happiness cannot live together. All right, so we talk a lot about the dichotomy of control on this podcast. We talk a lot about that foundational Stoic concept. And what that means is desires, generally speaking, are attached to an external thing, right? We have external, internal, that which we control, that which we do not. Desires typically are connected and attached to the external. Wealth, fame, power, sex, all of those things are external, right? Those things that we desire, that we want, they're outside of our ability to control oftentimes, right? There's a lot of external factors that come from that. You need proof? Just consider all of the emergency calls that you've been on that had a nexus in some ill-considered desire to go viral. Speaking of social media metrics, right? How many people had to respond to some idiot eating a Tide Pod or some other nonsense that was a viral meme that somebody wanted to create that ended up with them in the emergency room instead? Again, whether it's eating Tide Pods, the duct tape challenge was another one, the cinnamon challenge, sneaking into some dangerous or prohibited place to take a selfie or live stream. Like you see the idiots who climb up on, the cell phone towers to, live stream or take a video of themselves. People put themselves in peril all the time out of a desire to gain their 15 minutes of fame, and in hopes that it's going to bring them some sort of lasting sense of happiness, which of course it isn't, because these are all desires that are tied to an external thing. Like fame is an external thing. You becoming famous has very little to do. I mean, that you do control an aspect of it. There is something that you can do to create, a certain virality. You can do things that are, look at the Jake Paul and, his brother, they basically did stupid videos on the internet and became mega billionaires, right? Like you can achieve that is something that you have there's a component of that, but whether that catches on is not it's nothing that you can do about it, right? Whether that catches on, whether it blows up, whether it results in you actually achieving fame and wealth and power is up to the masses and what they want to consume at a given time. But this desire for fleeting fame, for internet approval, what does that actually do with the human brain? You see, it gives us that dopamine hit. When we do something that generates likes and shares and creates a sense of social approval, it gives us that dopamine hit, but it doesn't last. It's like, I don't know anything about cocaine other than what I've learned about it on the job. But it's similar to that, right? Like you're constantly chasing, you meet an addict of whether it's fentanyl or cocaine or whatever opiate. They're always chasing the dragon, right? And then virality, internet stardom, it's the same thing. It's a powerful drug similar to any narcotic. They're always chasing that feeling they got from the first hit, going viral, 1 million people watching me and me being famous, and tasting that for just a second. Oh my gosh, you're always chasing that. And so it just ups the ante. But the reality is that pursuit of desires, the pursuit of lasting happiness are usually at odds with each other, because you cannot pursue that external, that metric that you have no control over, that you can't do anything about, and truly be happy, because you're always constantly outsourcing your happiness to someone else. And by placing our happiness and our well-being on external factors, we set ourselves up for disappointment and discontentment, because they're subject to circumstances beyond our control, right? You just run the course of nobody cares about you anymore. They've moved on to the next big thing. You've got to constantly be upping the ante to get that attention, to feed the monkey, to chase that dragon. So what happens when that occurs? When those people whose approval you're constantly seeking simply move on. And the truth is, we attach our happiness to the external, and the more that we do that, the more vulnerable we are to disappointment and frustration. It's kind of bring this full circle to talk about what I talked about to open the podcast. I didn't want to be on social media. I wasn't looking to be, Jake Paul or whatever his brother's name is. I don't have a desire to share that much of my life with people. I have a desire to share information with people that is going to change people's lives. It's going to make their job easier. That's going to give them some mindset tools. That's going to help them approach life more effectively. And so I had to figure out the best way to do that. And the way for me to figure that out was to post across a number of platforms, was to track my metrics, was to see what the audience was telling me. In other words, that's what I do control. I control the information. I control what I do with that information, right? So I'm not chasing fame. I'm chasing an audience that I can improve their lives, that I can share this information with. And if that audience isn't on this social media metric, if it isn't over here, then I'm not pursuing those things, because trying to catch lightning in a bottle, trying to get that dopamine hit of being liked by people over here doesn't do me any good, right? If my goal is to affect as many people as possible that are in my target audience, then I need to go where my target audience is, right? And so I'm not going to allow lack of success in those areas to be disappointing or frustration. I'm seeing those as opportunities to focus on the area where I need to present my message. That's how you can align your desires with what is within your control. When you do that, you cultivate a more stable and lasting sense of happiness, of purpose, right? Versus constantly outsourcing your desires to the external. Truth is, the more we attach happiness to the external, the more vulnerable we are to disappointment and frustration. And I have a feeling that if you're not learning that lesson, your kids are learning it, your grandkids will be learning it, because we will be forever connected via social media, algorithms, via the internet for as long as we live. And what we're seeing is this massive changeover in our world between traditional stardom and fame. The movie stars, the television stars, they're still out there. They still make their millions of dollars. They still make their movies. But we're seeing the rise of these internet personalities that are becoming stars in their own right, that are becoming the most powerful advertising vehicles. One of the most fascinating things to come out of this election for me was seeing the change, the shift from traditional media to long-form podcasting, to different means of attacking the message, of getting your message out and in front of people that are likely to vote for you. It's fascinating to watch. Just as in 2008, it was fascinating to watch a candidate like Obama really embrace social media for the first time. That was the first real social media campaign for presidency, was 2008. He leveraged Twitter and Facebook and social media really in an effective way that hadn't been done before. Social media was there in prior years, but he leveraged it and effectively used it as a means to go after young voters and a coalition of voters that would support him. I watched Trump and Vance do something very similar in this election cycle, going on Joe Rogan and Sean Ryan and the Nelk Boys and like all these, Theo Vaughn, all these different podcasts that had never been a player in that space before, all of a sudden were a player in the space. It's fascinating to me, super fascinating to me. And who knows what 4 years will bring or 8 years will bring, right? So we're always going to be connected going forward to some degree or another via these sort of platforms. So we can't completely disconnect from them. We can't completely remove ourselves from this environment. The key for us is ensuring that we are not outsourcing our happiness to what happens in this environment, to the external, that we are recognizing and understanding what we control and focusing on that. And if we're going to use these platforms, that we use them as tools to best leverage what we do control. So let me leave you with a journal prompt. Get out your Big Chief notebook, get out your pen, write this one down. Ask yourself this: what external desires are preventing me from being happy? What external desires are preventing me from being happy? All right, folks, that's what I got for you today. Like I said, 3 more podcasts this week, and then I will see you again in December. Until next time, you are out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast. so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.